I am embarrassed to admit that I paid $375 for these nightstands at auction and drove an hour each way to get them. Now, before you judge me too much, I was pretty early on in buying and refinishing furniture. I was using Google image search, which can be a really valuable tool in finding out the value of a piece. But this time I think I got catfished because that same set of nightstands is still for sale a year and a half later. So let's make the best of a bad decision and give this new life. I actually want to take these pieces off. I don't like them. I feel like they just give it a bit of a like a tray on top, that feel to it. So I'm gonna take them off. I'm hoping I can still like keep these top wood after I take them off, but we'll see. It's a risk I'm gonna take. I need something with a better edge. Let's see. Oh, this is not a good sign. Has like a routed. Well, they might just all be getting painted. So I really do not want to keep the top little tray. That's a shame. All glued. It's okay. You know, sometimes don't go as planned. I was pretty bummed about this deep hole because it was going to change my design plan, but sometimes you just go with what a piece gives you. So I am switching to a rubber mallet to get this off. It's a little bit gentler. I'm trying not to beat up the rest of it as I hammer it off. Here you can see the aftermath. I was not expecting this at all. And then I also have these nails sticking out that I have to pull out. I just used pliers. Thankfully, it wasn't too much of a problem, but still more time. So now that I've made a really big mess and this did not go at all as planned, I'm going to get it cleaned up, do my typical clean it, get the hardware off, and then get this ready to get filled. Because that's going to have to be one of the first steps, because that's going to be a lot of Bondo and need some extra dry time. After getting it all cleaned up, I went ahead and sanded it with 220 around those edges and the top just to smooth out where I had to take all that out. And then I'm just using this 2-part epoxy filler. It's like Bondo, but it's by JB Weld. Works just the same. I'm mixing it in batches because I'm going to have to fill a lot of area, and this stuff dries really quickly. It was ready to sand in about 15 minutes, and I'm just using 180 grit to smooth that out. And here you can see it after the first time, and I ended up doing 2 more rounds to get it completely smooth. And now it's time to scuff sand the rest of it. For the one nightstand that had several bare wood areas, I was trying to get it nice and smooth. So you can see I'm scuff sanding, vacuuming off the dust that's from the finish that was on there, and then going back and sanding. And for basically all the flat surfaces that I could, I'm using my orbital sander because I like that it works the quickest. And I'm also making sure on the edges of the doors to sand it back pretty well, because as you paint, it's going to add more thickness, and I want those doors to be able to shut. And then on these fluted door fronts, I am using my Surf Prep sander with the foam attachment. It works really well for getting these curved or grooved surfaces. And once all that's done, it's time for a good vacuum and wipe down of all that sanding dust before coming in with painting. But first, I'm going to use shellac. This way, if anyone down the line wants to strip the paint off of here, this will make it much easier. So I'm just using it all over, and I used about a can, I think, for this. So it doesn't really require too much effort or cost to do this. It also dries super fast and totally worth the effort, but just remember, wear your PPE. All right. So after a while of noodling this over, I've decided to try a look that I saw Flip by Abby do. It's a combo of this paint and then finished it off with a wax. So I've never used this before. It's a Real Milk Paint Co. It's like has milk proteins and colorants and somehow a powder, but it has no VOCs, safe to use inside, which is pretty cool. Comes with this little marble to mix. You're supposed to do 1 part powder to 1 part water. So I'm gonna give it a try. You're supposed to shake it up really well. I think it said 5 minutes to shake it up, and then let it sit for 10 to 20 minutes to break down any particles, and then you can thin or thicken as necessary. So okay, I'm gonna do this for the next 5 minutes. Get an arm workout. It's only like a minute in and it's already like super thick. I know it said that it can bubble a lot, like a lot of foam kind of, so I'm guessing that's accumulating as I shake. And that's probably why you have to let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, this ended up sitting for closer to an hour. I think it was right around 50 minutes, so let's see what it looks like. Hopefully it's not separated some, because I think it did say that you're supposed to maybe stir it a bit as you're using it. All right, so it's pretty thick on top. Good consistency there. All right, let's try this out. Okay, so real time, it's actually pretty late here. I'm gonna go to bed soon, but I really wanted to try this out. So I am going to just try it out here on the inside, and then for a vertical surface, I'm gonna do the back because I'm gonna paint the back of these as well. And I do think it's pretty cool that, you know, I can do this inside my home. Okay, it's, I don't know, it's a little thick. We're gonna see how this goes on. It said to use a natural bristle brush. Which thankfully Minwax sent me not too long ago, which was really nice of them. I'm kind of thinking I might want to thin this out for next time. I decided to go ahead and paint the backside of the nightstand too, because I wanted to see how it did on a vertical surface versus a flat horizontal one. All right, it's early the next morning. It did get good coverage. It's a little rough, it feels like, but let's see. Scraped off a little there. Yeah. Okay, I did forget to put this bonding solution that I had bought. I forgot to put that in there. So I'll have to fix this, and then I'll add that and test this section again. Okay, it is all sanded back. Did not record that because you know what sanding looks like. It sanded off so easily, so I could tell it had not adhered well. I have added milk paint's bonding substance. It almost like, you can kind of see a little bit of remnant there where I missed the container some. It looks like a top coat. I don't really know what it is, but they say it's their bonding primer, I think is what the terminology is. So I've gotten that all mixed in. I did water it down a little bit more as well, have a bit more of a consistency. I think that might dry well. I am planning this time to just do the back. And my thought is, especially because brush strokes just kind of bug me. There were a lot of brush strokes when this dried. So my thought is to go ahead and go through the 2 coats I think it's going to take, and then the sealing wax that I'm planning on putting on there, and just getting an idea of how I think it looks if I want to go through and do it on the entire piece. So hopefully it will look good because Abby's looks so pretty. I might have to go back and watch her video again. Since this is watered down a bit more, I don't know, I might need 3 coats. We'll see. Being a bit more laid back with this one. I can't remember if I said last time, but I do say you can use a foam roller as well to apply this. Here you could see what it looked like wet. As you can see, there's still looks like a lot of brush strokes, but I tried my best to smooth it out. Okay, this dried and adhered so much better. So I'm gonna try a second coat. I will do like a light sanding because there's lots of little kind of bumps and nibs on there. And then looks like I'm gonna at least have to do 3 coats. After the second coat, I was actually pretty happy with the coverage, and I knew the wax that I was using had color in it, so I went ahead and applied it and just to see how it would dry and how it would look. Unfortunately, I hated it. I was so disappointed. It just didn't look the way I was hoping it would look to at least match Abby's piece. Her piece, I think, was stripped down to raw, so I think it just absorbed into the wood versus sitting on the surface like it did here for me. So I scraped it back first to get that wax off before then going in and sanding and kind of starting over with another plan. Once that was completely prepped, it's time to prime. I am doing some test sprays. It's always a good practice to do this so you get your sprays exactly how you want. I'm using the Erlex 5700 sprayer, and I have loved this thing. It's definitely worth the investment in my opinion. It just gets a really nice fine spray. There are of course other sprayers that are a bit more entry level or budget friendly that you can use that will finish well, but I just really like how this sprays on at a much finer and controlled consistency than I have seen in the other sprayers that I've used. Now, spraying something that has doors or an inner cabinet, it can be a little tricky just trying to decide like what order do you want to spray. So I went ahead and sprayed the doors first, so those would be done, and then tackled the inside of the cabinet. And I'm going to do this more like show you the entire process of me spraying it. It's not going to be like as you should, like keeping a certain amount of inches away from the surface and keeping your wrist straight. Like you kind of have to make do when you're in this tight of a space and using a sprayer, but it's worked fine in my experience, just doing the best you can. There is going to be a little bit of a weird cutoff because my phone died while I was recording this, but you at least get to see most of it and see how it still worked fine even though it wasn't proper form. Okay, here they are next day. Paint dried overnight. It is nice and adhered. Do the scratch test. It's not flaking off. I did notice a couple areas that I need to repair. I have a piece of tape there already. And then down here is for some Bondo, and then I'll use the spot and glazing putty for these areas on the top that have a bit more grain showing and I want them to be smooth. And then I'm just going to go ahead and actually put paint on there because this primer gave such great coverage, and I already had the shellac on there as well. I'm using Bondo on these corner spots because those are a little bit bigger than on the top, and it's going to be a better filler to get a nice durable repair. On the top where I had to sand so much as I was smoothing out the areas that I filled, it exposed a lot of the wood grain, so I'm using the spot and glazing putty to give it a nice smooth appearance all over. That piece of tape that you saw me remove, it was there to help create more of a right angle as I applied the putty, so it would be easier to sand and match the rest of the corner there. So that's just something I always like to do. And then I'm trying to keep the sander as flat on the surface as I can as I sand, so it all looks uniform. When sanding in between coats, I often like to use these squishy foam pads by Surf Prep, and it's really soft, and so it's just going to take off a little bit as it goes. I'm using the very fine grit, which they say is around 280 to 320, and I'm just going to use that all over to get it nice and smooth before applying paint again. And for those couple areas that I had repaired, it sanded back quite a bit when I was smoothing it out, so I gave it another coat of shellac. Now it's time to my favorite part, finally getting paint on the piece. I am using the color Charleston Green by Wise Owl paint. I absolutely love this color. I've used it before and it sold pretty quickly for me, so I'm hoping that will be the same case for this one. I will be 100% honest with you though. From my experience, I have not had the best of luck using Wise Owl paint. I've had just some issues with how it dries. It dries quickly, and so I think that may be part of it, but I've had it bubble up on me and just give me problems where I'm having to then sand and recoat and baby it, and honestly, I just don't have time for that, and especially for how much it is. It shouldn't be happening, in my opinion. Now, I will say that a lot of people love Wise Owl and basically only use that, so maybe it's something about me, my climate, I don't know, but I have had some other furniture friends have issues with them, so I honestly, like, going forward, I'll just color match this if I want to use this color, but it's something I already have on hand and wanted to use it up. I will mostly, when I'm buying, be using Sherwin-Williams Gallery Series or maybe their urethane trim enamel. I just love how well they both spray and how accessible it is. I'd also love to know if you've used Wise Owl paint and what you think about it too. So the second coat is dry, and I didn't record myself taping this off, but I wasn't quite happy with the top, so I've given it a light sand and I'm going to do another coat. It just kind of dried too quick because it was pretty warm outside. I've taped off the edges on both of them just to help, since I'm only doing the top. Like, as you spray, it'll often kind of get these edges, and especially where there's that trim there. I don't want there to get any splatters on there because sometimes it can actually like look I don't know, just like look, have a different sheen, and you can see where it's different. It doesn't always happen, but it can, so I'm going to guard against that and hopefully get a last coat of paint on here. And as I'm spraying here, I'm trying to be strategic with how I'm spraying. I am starting at that edge. I'm spraying from behind it, and then, you know, continuing over the rest of that. And then once I get to the edge that's closest to me, I turned around and then sprayed the other direction. That's so any overspray is gonna get onto the painted surface versus maybe on the edge that I'm not painting. Okay, this is dry, but I went over it basically a couple times with my sprayer, and I think it caused it to bubble some. Like, it's kind of hard to see, but that there are a lot of those on top, and I'm just not happy with it. I want it to be as great as I can. It's not gonna be 100% perfect, but try to get there. And then I also have this little area that basically that spot and glazing putty, I left too big of a chunk on there. I don't know why I didn't wipe it all the way back, but it can sometimes react with whatever paint or primer you have on there, and so it kind of peeled back the primer, and so I filled it some, and I think it's smooth, but it can sometimes kind of like flash if you like create a different sheen with it if you don't spot prime it, and that happened here. So I'm gonna sand this back, spot prime here, and put another coat on, and I should hopefully be finished with the painting part. And so that's over here too. There were bubbles on this one. I'll get that fixed. I am just hand painting the edges of the drawers. They usually just need a couple coats when I did this. And I did like a quick little light sand too, because this little edge here where the spray stops, it can be a little rough, and this is a satin paint and I don't want it to, you know, show through on the top where it's rough. So I get it covered, and then I kind of like to do a light continuous brush on the top and then let it dry. All right, super close to the finish line, yet so many things to do. One of the issues I'm having is it was like this from the get-go. I sanded it back some, but just wasn't right. This door won't shut. So what I'm going to do is sand it back here on this edge back as much as I can, hopefully get it to shut, and then just hand paint right here to get it hopefully good to go. You could probably have noticed I did not like the way that the painted hardware looked or hinge, so and it was coming off, so I am just kind of manually removing that, and then I will have to do something to make all the hardware match because I'm replacing the bat wing pull that was on the drawer. So several more things to do, not very hard per se, but still plenty of time. So get going on all that and get these finished for y'all to see. Okay, so do you notice anything about what I'm holding? Yeah, that's a hinge. I ended up having to take the doors off so I could get the hardware to match. Definitely kind of disappointing, but hey, that's how things go, right? And I am giving it a quick little scuff sand so my spray paint will adhere. I am giving it a base spray, and it's like a walnut colored spray paint. It's going to go well as a base layer for the rub and buff that I'm using on all the hardware to get the color that I want. Okay, this is looking a lot better than when I just first tried it on there when it was straight gold. And then here, this is hardware I'm putting in on the bottom to replace the bat wing pull. It came more of like an antique gold look, and I really wanted to try this. I guess I didn't say that yet. I'm using Spanish copper rub and buff. I've not used it on a piece before, but I think it's gonna look really pretty with this green. I went ahead and lined the drawers with this pretty floral paper. I thought it went well with the style and color. For attaching the handles, I was a little in between on the sizes for the screws, so I'm having to use a couple washers with the longer screw, and that worked perfectly. I always have a package of these hanging around in case I run into this problem, which it's come up many times. The very last thing I had to do before painting the inside of that door was to actually sand it back again some more, because when I put those doors back on, they didn't close right. So always seems to happen. But let's take a stroll down memory lane just to remember how these looked. They were beautiful. It was not my plan to paint these. I was hoping to kind of tone down the red, but I couldn't take that trim on the top. It just reminded me too much of a tray table, but because of that grooved area in the top, I had to pivot and paint. I still think they've turned out beautiful, and I hope you do too. I just love this green, and I think it suited this style of nightstand really well. I think the hardware color matches the wallpaper beautifully. You have the fluted fronts of the doors. Everything about these nightstands is really timeless and beautiful, and I hadn't mentioned this yet, but these are made by Baker Furniture, so they are a really great brand. Numbers wise, I listed these originally for $850. I felt like with that comp that I saw online, even though exceptionally high, that this would be a reasonable price to ask. I didn't have any interest there, but then I relisted again for $800 and they sold that day. So I was pretty happy with that profit despite paying so much for them initially, and the lady was really happy with her purchase. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I always appreciate you watching and for your support. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love for you to follow along for my future videos, and I'll see you next time.